Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr, and in today's Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia Should You Pull video, we're going to be talking about a character that I've been pretty excited about for quite a long time. Not necessarily because of their kit, but because it's a Final Fantasy V representative. Of course, I'm talking about Dorgann. So if you'd like to know more about Dorgann, the return of Lyse, and her pretty nicely upgraded kit, actually, as well as the event that comes with them, then stay tuned and keep on watching. Now, of course, before we get started, don't forget to check out all of my social links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Patreon. Over on Twitch, I have cut down on my streams a little bit. I will be detailing why in a future video, but some changes in my life have come about, and I need to cater to those, as well as keep up with my videos and streams as best I can. But if you'd like to come and follow me, we're playing lots of Pokemon Scarlet on a Wonder Trade Nuzlocke run, which has been really good fun. And of course, I will be doing Dissidia as I can do it, because obviously sometimes there are days that come out with events, and Dorgann's event is one of them, sadly, where I'll need to wait a day before I can do them. But definitely come along and find me on Twitch if you want to come and chat to me over on there. Over on Patreon, I do always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a video, and today that person is going to be Raylos Pendragon, who has been one of my followers for a really long time and has recently joined up on my Patreon. A huge thank you goes out to you. And their title card features Rue from Threads of Fate, which is a game I've heard a lot about, but I've sadly never played myself. So thank you very much for bringing it to my attention once again. And obviously, if you're interested in having a title card made for you, as well as lots of other benefits, then perhaps consider clicking on the link in the description box below. And last but not least, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators and resources out there for Dissidia Final Fantasy. So let's get stuck straight into the banner then, shall we? Featured on today's banner, we're going to be talking about Dorgann, who is a brand new character with FR and all of the trimmings that come with it. Sellers' BT features here, and then we also get the return of Galoof and his LD kit, which means he's getting his Force enhancements here. And Galoof is still to this day one of my favourite characters to play in all of DFFOO. He's just so good at what he does and has consistently been good. And even though he doesn't actually get any upgrades here, he's still really good, so that's somebody you might want to consider. And then Lyse is also going to be getting a rework along with the return of her LD kit. So let's take a look at Lyse first then, shall we? So once again, big thank yous to MidDU over on Reddit for their translations here. Lyse is going to be getting an additional use of Riddle of Fire, which then turns into Fire Tackle after you use it, and it has 5 HP dumps on it, which, given that Lyse is more focused on the support aspect of things, is actually not terrible. Now, her other skill doesn't get any sort of like reworks or anything here, which is totally fine. But her LD does, and it means that she gets more out of her like Way of the Will buff, which obviously gives her all of her offensive buffs, etc. And then the Way of the Will buff as well adds all of your typical offensive stats like party-wide brave gains, that kind of thing. But the most important things to note here are that she gives Party Brave Last Stand, which means you can't be broken, and also Party-wide HP Last Stand as well. So this would be amazing if the game were in a position where we needed it. But because the game's kind of on the easy side, it probably isn't going to be that relevant to a lot of players. However, for those who are struggling, then Lyse is going to do very, very well at keeping you safe in a lot of ways. And then her EX also gets a rework here, being a C90 character as well. She's now getting it so that the chakra stacks that she has only needs to go to 3 now in order to use her Purification and Brotherhood attacks instead of 5. And then you get 6 HP dumps out of it as well. So honestly, Lyse gets quite a big glow up with the rework that she gets here. It's just a shame that she kind of got it a bit too little too late, because we're not at a point in the game where we realistically need it. But if you do fancy using her, she definitely has her purpose now. So now let's take a look at Dorgann, who is brand new to the game and is in fact Bart's father and one of the 4 Warriors of Dawn from Final Fantasy V. So we'll start with the abilities just as they come. So his 15 CP ability, Skill 1, is Spellblade Break, which is an instant break target to AoE with triple HP dump on it that inflicts a debuff that makes it so that they have defense down and wind in peril. Dorgann is very wind heavy. He likes having wind access to it, which obviously works to both his benefit and to his detriment, because if you're in elemental lockout content and you don't want to bring wind along, you ain't bringing Dorgann. But he does come in with an additional damage up just by having self-enchant for wind and wind in peril. He does not, however, enchant the party for wind. So if you want to use him to his maximum potential, perhaps consider bringing along Fujin and her LD call, or even something like Bart's or anything like that, so that you're able to have a little bit of access to wind enchant. Fujin obviously in particular. And then his skill 2, Starlight Casting, gives him a buff that is 4 HP dumps to a single target. That gives him your typical attack stats, Wind Enchant to himself, and also whenever anyone breaks an enemy, it triggers up a follow-up attack called Avatar Slash. This is improved with his LD, and if you've used Vayne's BT at all, you'll know roughly what you're getting out of this. You'll get a triple HP dump once you've gotten the LD and everything sorted, every time you break an enemy. Now, what's nice about this is that the attack itself is an AoE bravery attack, which means that it can itself break things. So what you want to do is break an enemy with it, but leave another enemy unbroken, so that the Avatar Slash itself then breaks the second enemy, and then triggers again. So this is really abusable in certain compositions. Many people will have seen Sephiroth be used in here because of Sephiroth's BT effect, allowing enemies to go to 1 bravery after every turn. So if you're using Dorgann and then a turn-hogging character alongside Sephiroth, I'm sure you can see where this is going. It can get very powerful very quickly. His EX re-breaks all enemies and inflicts a debuff to all enemies for 1 of their turns, which makes it so that any damage they deal becomes 0. Which is a wonderful thing to just kind of lump in, like a Cypher EX style thing, where you're just going to get a bit where the enemies can't deal damage to you, on top of the fact that you're going to be dealing boatloads of damage to them. It's a nice thing to have, and it also moves another character, another party member, turn next to Dorgann, so that you can capitalize on this even further. His LD is another sort of re-break attack and gives him Mind's Eye and recovers a skill use for both of his other skills. Gives him more offensive damage, numbers up, all of that stuff. And also gives you cancel re-break after every attack that is not Avatar Slash Plus. So basically, otherwise you don't end up with an infinite loop of Avatar Slash Pluses. So you get tons and tons of re-breaks on all of Dorgann's other moves. Now, ideally, you don't really care about this bit because you'd rather other characters be doing the breaking than Dorgann, but it does basically give you Avatar Slash, which is the triple HP dump version of his Avatar Slash, so you're definitely going to need this if you're going to use it. His FR is partnered up with Auron, which is really nice, has triple breaks, triple break because it re-breaks on every HP attack, and also makes it so that an enemy also always re-breaks an enemy when Dorgann's attacking them, and when another character attacks them, it instant breaks them. So think Trey mixed with Cypher mixed with Vayne is the best way I can think to describe Dorgann. And his force effects are when a turn passes with the character selecting a wind attack, or if a wind attack is triggered outside of own turn. 5% normally, 25% if you're using Dorgann to do it. Now, Dorgann can obviously hit multiple times with his follow-up attacks, so that's something you may want to consider and something you're absolutely going to want to abuse if you can help it in order to get the most out of his FR. When a turn passes with the character breaking a target, when a character attacks an enemy, breaks, like I said, it breaks them instantly, and you also get some HP damage and max brave cap up as well. It's really powerful in certain compositions. Obviously, re-breaking an enemy every turn when you're during force time is what you want when it comes to Dorgann, or even if you're just using Dorgann generally, and not every character can do that. There are some that can, so, you know, Sephiroth BT is an obvious choice. You also have access to Vayne, who can do it really well. Vayne works very well with this. Araneo was recently released and will work very well with that, but by and large, most people will want to use Sephiroth BT with this. I want to use this because it's Dorgann, and he's really cool, and he works really well with a lot of characters that I happen to really like, but there's a lot that you want to kind of factor in. I think he'd run really well with Faris because of Faris' ability to instant break things during enemy turns and then have Dorgann follow up on that. So there's a lot to play with Dorgann, and him being a follow-up attacker is really nice, and that EX debuff is also tasty. But do you absolutely have to have him? No, probably not, but I do. So now let's take a quick look at the event that comes along with Dorgann. Now, Dorgann's event is going to contain the Unbound enemies, which is, honestly, it's another nice and easy Shinryu for us to go through. The main gimmick for these guys is that they have a permanent aura up that reduces your max bravery down by 300%. So you're not able to really do an awful lot of damage outside of the times where you can cancel it. And the way that you cancel it is to use a wind enchanted force ability and go into force time. Now, I know what you're thinking, oh my god, I have to use Dorgann or Fujin for this. You don't, because you can use a wind enchanted force attack and go into force time that way. And honestly, everyone has access to this. because you have access to Fujin's base call ability, which does enchant the party for wind. So you can just use that on your biggest attacker or a supporter for your biggest attacker for them to then just go off and do as much damage as they want to during their force time. So other than that, they're resistant to all non-wind or ice damage, so you're going to want to use some sort of enchant at the very least, even outside of that. And then they don't really do a huge amount else. They can give themselves HP regen. Also, big shout outs go out to DissidiaCompendium.com for the information. They can give themselves evocation, which is just a HP regen, but realistically you don't really want them to have that, so you can just get hold of, you know, making it so that they don't have turns or some sort of dispel if you wanted to. But then, you know, they can also just get broken, and there's that way of dealing with it as well. Obviously, with an event that's wanting to be broken a lot because Dorgann is a very break-heavy character, that's the kind of strategy that you're going to bring along with you. They only have 85 million HP each. I think this is to try and combat the fact that you can't really do damage outside of force time to them very easily. But realistically, when were you ever doing that anyway? So now we have Would You Pull, the section of the video where you guys get your chance to let everyone know whether you're pulling on a banner or not. And as always, a huge thank you goes out to all of my patrons for casting their votes and their comments. So let's go into some numbers straight off the bat, shall we? 30% of people said they were going in with gems on this banner, which I think might be a little bit high, but I am one of those people that's probably going to use gems on this banner, so I can't say too much. And then 26% of people said they were using 100 or more tickets, then 17% said less than 100 tickets, and then 26% of people said no thank you. I'm using gems because I'm a massive FF9 fanboy, so that's my reasoning for it. If I weren't, then the main reason that I would suggest gems is because it's a brand new character, which means that there's more to acquire than other characters. I will be honest, I was rather inebriated at the weekend, and I may or may not have pitied Sellers BT already, so that may not be the reason for me to go in on this banner either, but it's fine, we don't need to talk about it. Let's go on ahead and look into some comments, shall we? So Chamberlain says, I'm keeping this short and sweet. I want him, I can afford him, but with units like JG coming up next month, Jack Garland, and with Sid, Reigns and Seymour BT, Dorgann loses a fair amount of value. That being said, break and rebreak is nice to play. Playing Dorgann adds to the wind enchant and damage units, of which there are very few. Sid Reigns, I think, is very contentious because people consider him like practically mandatory for the Spiritus for Pandemonium. Seymour, Seymour is a very taste-based thing. I'm not too keen on Seymour's BT, but a lot of people are because it features anima, and that's totally fair. I am more here for Dorgann than I am for either of those characters, but again, that is my bias. But I do think that he does play well enough with a large variety of characters that I like the playstyle of anyway, that I'm happy to go in for him. Does he match up to everyone's playstyle? Absolutely not, and therefore comments like this are absolutely valid. Silence says, with Dorgann, I'm willing to go about 200-250 tickets, with him being able to almost constantly re-break. He's a great assist for the likes of Vayne. Plus, with a follow-up attack, it adds the output that he has. His only critique is that he's wind imbued. With elemental lockouts, it plays against him, while in others, it works for him. I wouldn't go gems on this one, purely as we have Sid, Reigns and Jack Garland in the next few months, so that heavy spending is being held till then. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, a lot of people are holding out for those characters, and, you know, while I've been very frivolous with my resources recently, a lot of people aren't in a position to do that, and I do agree that if you are low on resources, Dorgann probably shouldn't be a priority character for you, but if you've got some spare tickets, give it a shot. Though, I never like spending tickets trying to get FR and LD on stuff because it never works out for me. But again, I'm in a fortunate position where I have most characters LDs by now because I've played the game for long enough. And I think a lot of players in this day and age are in a similar position where they have a lot of the characters LDs and they only have to go for FRs. But Dorgann being new, obviously you have to go and get everything. And then finally, Drifter says, Sephiroth is my favourite character, so for a character to come out that can play off his BT effect so well as a must-pull for me. This is absolutely a valid thing to say. If you enjoy Sephiroth, you want Dorgann, because they go together like chalk and cheese. They are absolute best buds. If you enjoy using Sephiroth a lot, and you've enjoyed him since his rework came about, honestly, getting hold of Dorgann will do absolute wonders for you, and you'll be able to use Sephiroth a great deal more because Dorgann exists. So if you like him, absolutely go in on it. Okay, so big question time. Should you pull for Dorgann? Now, Dorgann is very, very picky about the kinds of characters that he wants to play with. Like, he is very reliant on rebreaks and break mechanics, and there are actually quite a lot of different characters that can fulfill that role. We've talked about your Vaynes, your Sephiroths, and all sorts of characters like that, but there aren't enough of them to call Dorgann an absolute must-pull. But in the situations where Dorgann is good, he is extremely good. Like, being able to do 6 HP dumps off turn whilst also charging the gauge for 50% because you've hit 2 enemies is pretty wild. And you can do a lot with him with off-turn damage dealers like Celes or Faris, or other characters like Galoof being a fantastic example because he can follow up on counter-attacks being breaks, and they're likely to be breaks because of the enemy having just attacked you and restored some bravery. So I personally love Dorgann, but I don't know if everyone will feel the same way. His EX, however, is also very good, preventing like HP and bravery damage, because that's always a nice thing to have when you're dealing with attacks that like to interrupt you through thresholds or what have you. But the same is not necessarily said for Lyse, who, while she gets some incredible upgrades, her way of dealing with not taking damage isn't quite as desirable as just stopping the damage outright, because instead of that, she gives you party-wide last stand and anti-break tech, which is pretty fabulous. Honestly, it's really good, particularly the anti-break tech. I can't like fault that too much. But there aren't many instances in which you really need those things anymore, because we have the likes of your Raijin LD calls, characters like Dorgann who could just stop damage outright, or you just, you know, KO the enemy before they even get a chance to even try to attack you. So while Lyse is actually really quite good now and the upgrades she's had are pretty fierce, they would have been more fierce about 6 months ago. So that's going to be all for today's video. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, and let me know in the comments below whether you're planning on pulling for Dorgann or not. I am currently working on another Should You Play video for Star Ocean: The Divine Force, and I'm also working on other videos for some of the other games that I've been playing lately, because there have been a lot of them. So stay tuned for those as well, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications for any future videos I might be making. But for now, thank you ever so much, and I will see you next time. Take care, have a lovely day.